Does that mean it's working?
Red light?
Red light's on the camera.
Yep, every time it goes.
Hello, welcome to the January 17 EDIC meeting. Call to order. I'm gonna be up front and honest. I'm a little bit in a fog, even though I wrote this. If I remember correctly, you submitted minutes right after the meeting last time, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. That's what I thought. I looked at them then. I did not look at them today. But I had no issues then. Did anybody else have any corrections or a motion to approve?
I propose a motion to pass the December 15th minutes.
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
I don't remember if I was here,
I don't think you were.
so I can't vote.
I don't think I was either, so.
I have to abstain. I have to abstain.
That's okay.
So are we waiting for Casey? Or did anyone hear he's not coming?
No, Mo was the only notification.
Okay.
Anybody for public speak? I see no one. We'll skip over Jamie's part. Now, from we have our little agenda here, but I'm going to be a little bit loose to form. You know, it's a new year, and the way I look at it is between now and June, maybe July, is, you know, time to get, you know, a few things done. Typically, this meeting, I know sometimes people will talk about the spring cleanup. You know, I guess we can say, I'll be up front. If we never talk about spring cleanup again, it's fine with me. If we do, I will participate and be a good trooper, you know. I don't mind doing it, but it's how you say it? It's like gardening, it's weeding. You know? But I don't want to be negative to it, but I'm not gonna. It's not my driving passion.
Yeah. The last time there was a very poor productivity.
Participation.
And so I think that put a pallor over it for a lot of us.
My feeling on that, what your comment you just mentioned, is that sometimes, and I learned this through, you know, youth sports, you know, when you do like the same fundraiser over and over, sometimes you just have to let something rest for a year or two, and then it reinvigorates itself, you know, when there's like a need.
Yeah, I think the only part of it that might be noticed, might be missed, is when everything does get mulched,
Yeah.
it does have that new garden fresh look to it.
Yeah.
I know they break up the dirt around the trees, they put some sort of, I don't want to call it fertilizer.
It is fertilizer.
Down for the trees. And to his credit, George Mellick did trim all those trees this year, all the dead stuff and what have you. So I think that's the only piece of it that might be missed. If the sidewalks aren't swept, I'm not sure anybody notices.
No.
There seems to be less and less trash every year because we do stay on top of it. But let's let it ride and see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm a little bit. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm a little bit. I mean, like I said, I'm a little bit unenthusiastic about it. But like on the other hand, with the chamber giving up the Christmas lights, and there's something else I think that kind of went by the wayside. I was feeling like maybe, you know, we can't just keep dropping things as a community. But you know, but maybe if we it's a little bit early, but maybe we can just have a more narrow focused. You know, the rail trail will still be out,
Right.
Whether we talk to them or not. They're going to do their thing.
Right.
They're going to ask about the mulch, but we can deal with that. That's not a big deal. And then, you know, the firemen and a few volunteers on mulch, and you know, Mike's going to do his thing regardless of what we do to him.
Right.
He's
He'll
going to
clean
do
up the
it.
downtown.
Right. You know, but maybe we just, you know.
And his shirt stays white, I like it. It's all pressed to white, you don't even get a smudge.
So that was one thing I wanted to bring up. You know, I'm not. Well,
No, I think you're right. I mean, to sit through meeting after meeting after meeting and going over and over and over, it's like not necessary.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think we could certainly
Wing it.
assist with requests and support as
Yeah.
needed and just
Yeah.
go from there. I mean, I keep trying to get rid of the dog show, put that on a little bit, but the community likes it. So, you know, it has a great community, so,
Well,
you know, I
don't you-
keep kind of thinking about maybe.
Don't
we
you have a
should-
rookie teacher that needs something to do?
But so
I keep trying, but, you know.
are we talking about the possibility of not doing it, or just not planning it, and we'll see what happens?
I
There's a
think
big
he doesn't
difference.
want it on the agenda all the time.
Well-
Well, if we're gonna do it, we should at least talk about it a little.
Well,
bit,
no,
because
certainly, if
some of
we're,
that-
if whatever level we do, we should still give it its proper attention. I mean, I guess maybe I'll say now, maybe we want it to be a little bit on a smaller scale.
Mhm.
You know,
But we've solved the mulch problem. The mulch problem's
Well-
taken care of, so.
Well, not completely. because
No,
you still have
it's
to
around
have
the
people
trees.
spread it.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
correct, but some of the parts leading up to that
Yeah.
are all set up. We don't have to plant.
Yeah, I think the
them.
purchasing of it's okay, it's now, you need the bodies that are gonna put it down, and it seems to me last year that some of the regulars weren't even there to do that, we were scraping for mulch loads,
Yeah.
I think, last year.
Yeah, I mean, Williston, God thank them, they're the backbone of that.
Right.
There may come a time where they're tired of it, you know,
Well-
they're very helpful to the whole community, but.
yeah,
They might get tired of it.
we'll keep an eye, I don't mind addressing it, I just don't want it to be the EDIC's legacy.
Right,
Mhm.
right,
Yeah, good.
agreed.
I agree.
I
You
mean,
got my vote.
you know,
I think we should decide if we are gonna do it, then we should tone it down
yeah.
Yeah.
and at least talk about it a few times.
Oh, that's fine.
It
Look at
probably
it.
takes more advertising too.
So then I'll put it on the agenda. The ECA report, that-
I asked for it.
yeah, that can always stay on the agenda if you don't have something.
Yeah,
that's
no, I
fine.
didn't, I asked Denise for it, and she was supposed to send it to me yesterday, and I never got it, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, and,
Just leave it there and.
well, no, right,
Yeah.
but is cultural chaos kinda on its way?
Yeah, I guess,
I mean,
you
I know
know,
it's
there's
early,
some
but still.
pooped out people from doing it and
Yeah.
trying to decide what level they're gonna do it at. They're gonna do it, but do they wanna do it as big, cause it wasn't really helping the businesses.
I see.
As much. Some businesses were doing okay, restaurants were doing okay, but others thought, you know, it wasn't, so
Yeah.
I think they're planning on scaling back a little bit.
Uh-huh.
That's what I heard from the committee member
Okay.
yesterday, so,
Yep.
okay.
You know, as far as the plastic bag, you know, if I remember correctly, Amy's not here yet, it's like, it's just out there in ordinance committee, you know, I just sent that article just because it was an article I saw, not that we had to jump on the bandwagon, but, there was some feedback from different, you know, in that community from different people. Some more, the article I remember, you know, Big Y was commenting about the, paper not being, what was the term?
It's flimsy.
Yeah, but also not necessarily, it was counterproductive to have paper,
Oh.
you know, but I'm just, that was for, you know, point of information more than anything else. New liquor licenses is just, you know, whenever, you know, when Casey's not here, but if something pops up, it's just kind of like, nice to know. Mo's not here, but last I heard, the buyer's card was doing fine.
I'm having a hard time keeping up with you.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I could go back, but I did get one other bit of information for ECA Plus. I know that they're shooting to get full financing from the city for the coordinator's position, because 30% of it now is coming through a grant, Adams grant,
Oh, yeah,
which
yeah.
is ending, that part of it is gonna be ending, I think, one more year on it.
Yeah.
So I guess they did have a meeting, and they're gonna be bringing up the city council to go for full funding, that extra 30%. They don't have to.
That's a good point, 'cause that's gonna tie into something that I'll bring up in a little bit,
Okay.
but, ECA, coordinator funding.
Yeah.
And is there also some progress I'm hearing about somewhere?
No, it's okay, you were
on the,
busy.
Development of the upper.
Yes, we're actually, I'm meeting after this one, we're gonna start our capital campaign,
Okay,
probably by the beginning of
We're
next
skipping
month.
around, oh, thank you.
Good.
So, yeah.
I wish I had a wood furnace.
It is recyclable.
No, I do skim it, and I'm a recyclable nut in my house, but, so Jamie, we're just kind of cruising through some things, because I'm a little bit, disorganized, but, just to give you up to speed a tiny bit, you just had a little report on the ECA that, well, you must be aware the ECA coordinator is looking for some funding, or not her, but for
Full fund.
full funding for the position in a year from now.
I didn't know that.
Oh, well, because the Adams grant runs out, I think it has one more year, so they're approaching powers that be, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's all we just talked about.
They had a meeting, so that's all I know. I don't think they had it with city officials yet, but I know that they're strategizing to try to get it done sooner rather than later. Okay.
We talked briefly about, maybe, de-emphasizing, spring cleanup a little bit, not necessarily, forgetting it, we're gonna, but, it's not gonna be our driver. Was anything from the planning power?
Yeah, so, we talked the last meeting, there was a proposed zoning amendment for campgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Residential
Mhm.
campgrounds. The planning board is looking at the draft language tonight. So if you have comments or you want to be part of that discussion, they'll be meeting top floor at 6 p.m.
Was there a specific request that was prompting that review, or was it just?
Yes, there was I don't know how it was brought to City Council Ordinance Committee and when the hearings were held, but it started with a property owner, one of the R35 zones, who wanted to have sort of like a summer camp type, do some lodging, some
Okay.
pretty like low key, eco type, eco lodging, and when they applied for their building permit, they were denied because under our table of uses, campgrounds are under community facilities, and they're defined, community facilities are defined as being owned or run by a nonprofit. And because they were looking to do this as a for-profit venture, the building inspector wouldn't approve their permit. So this is this will be a new section of the ordinance that will address, I believe they're calling it seasonal campgrounds or something. So it's not year-round housing. It will have a series of standards and conditions, and will likely be a special permit that goes to the planning board, the zoning board.
Okay.
So, it's for R35 zone, or a specific R?
I actually did not have time to look at the draft language enough. There was an amendment to the table of uses that will show which zones it will be allowed in and which it won't be.
Mhm.
But I know that the originating idea was for the R35. I can't imagine that would be allowed in any of the sort of the business zones or the smaller residential zones, but I could see it being
Some R15s maybe.
maybe in the R40 or the R80. But
Has there been any input from the Board of Health?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, it's still an ordinance, so.
Yeah, and it's still in draft form, so the meeting is tonight.
Yep.
The planning board approved Cumberland Farms up on Northampton Street. So that is, I'm guessing it's nearing the end of the appeal period, so.
Is that where we see a foundation poured already?
No.
No, that's your other property.
Yeah, it's across the street.
Fedora's, isn't it?
So, yeah, it's across the street from the Fedor dealership.
Yeah.
So right before you stand.
Across from 10 from Fedor?
Yeah, it's diagonally, so you go on Route 10, after Cannon Real Estate and KSK Insurance, there's some vacant land. That piece of land, the furthest most piece towards Northampton.
Oh, almost across the street from,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm sure you guys read in the newspaper, city council approved, money for bonding for redesign of Union Street. So
Oh,
that-
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so,
So that's been, something that we've been trying to, everyone's trying to
Right.
get done for a
So,
long time.
So just to clarify, Jamie, that's sort of a design phase of the project?
Yes, my understanding is it was bonding for $450,000, based off, there was preliminary design work that was done, and that number was based off of what the total construction cost was estimated to be. It has to still, there's still a lot of hurdles that have to be cleared. It still has to go through the state's transportation projects list. It has to get, moved up eventually. And but this money will allow the city to start the design process, to start a draft. You can't move forward without a design. You can't even sometimes, begin without. So this will just help us move it along. Hopefully it gets selected.
So the scope of the project might be upgrading underground utilities, streets, sidewalks, traffic flows, all that kind of stuff might be in the design. I know it might be pie in the sky, but there was a lot of discussion about the non-four-way intersection that would be better served as a four-way intersection at Railroad and Liberty.
Yeah, so that, the intent is, I believe that the pot of money that we're looking at is under complete streets, and traffic, reducing the amount of carbon. So there's gonna be looking at bike lanes, looking at if the traffic flow can be improved, like you said, sidewalks. There's underground utilities that have to be replaced or repaired, working with the utility companies to get those done. There'll be some parking adjustments to deal with the bike lanes or shared roads that traffic, that intersection of the Union Rail Trail.
Yep, this way, you go back to the clerk's office, that's where I work.
Union Street, well, because it's a high, it's like a high, there've been a number of crashes there, accidents there, so that will be something that's looked at specially to figure out how to deal with that intersection. But it's all, right now that's just beginning. We have a couple of studies on Union Street that were done in the past that just helped get it to this point.
I think one of the changes that's, I notice now, just because I do travel that way, probably rush hour times, and there's more and more traffic trying to get in and out of Liberty Street, and I think that might be driven a little bit by the 15 Cottage Street development, where folks are going in that way to get home, if you will, as much as coming from, taking the turn in across from Mountain Ice Cream to get in there. They're also coming in from Liberty Street, and unfortunately, you get folks trying to take a left on the railroad and trying to take a left onto Liberty, and everybody's just, there's a traffic jam right there with nobody moving. I've seen it backed up to the lights on Union and backed up to the lights on Cottage, so it's probably screening more now for a redesign there than it ever was because of that increased traffic on trying to get into Liberty Street and out of Liberty Street. I hope if we're really thinking outside of the box too, and I know it's probably more money than anybody's gonna pony up, but, is there a potential to have the bike path go overhead? I've seen more and more communities doing that.
Really?
Yeah, You ought to see what they're doing down at the Cape. The bike path's going, any significant highway now, it's going up and over, like they did on Route 10 here.
Mhm.
So, you know, maybe that's real far-fetched, but in a redesign of that, it's gonna potentially invade the bike path even more. So, be interesting. Good.
Regarding Union Street, just a quick question, you know, there was like 2 years ago some studies, are they gonna be incorporated, or is it back to
So
the
that was,
drawing
that
board?
was, so the study that, we got a small grant from DHCD in 2012, 2013.
Uh-huh.
Which was, the Cecil group came out and did a couple of visioning sessions and made some preliminary analysis assessments of that with community input of Union Street. And so that is what has started, like that is one of the things that helped catalyze this next step of actually
Uh-huh.
getting them, working to get a preliminary design that we can take to the tip, that now we can, with city council approving bounding. You know, so this is collaborative between DPW and planning department and then the state. So there's a lot of things, because it is a state road that are gonna be outside of the city's control. You know, if the state decides they want 14-foot wide lanes, they're not going to, but if they were to do that, then, you know, that would
That is in
affect.
fact a state road.
Is it
Yeah,
considered
it
part
is.
of Route 141?
Yes,
It is
oh
141.
yeah, it is 141.
Really, because, so, but the state's not maintaining it in any way, plowing, what
They
happened?
would be paying for the, assuming that it's funded by, that the project goes through the tip, then the state will be paying for the repairs.
So interestingly, you know, the state highway on Route 10 ends at the bridge,
Yeah.
picks up again in College Highway Variety.
Mhm.
And if you've ever been behind a snowplow, they'll pick it up and put it down right at the right spot. And if you've noticed where the road's bare and where it's not, it's state highway.
Mhm.
But yet on 141, the state has no responsibility for snow clearing or what have you?
We took that over, I was explaining to me at one time for some reason years ago. But it comes down to, what Jamie just said though, is who's paying for the money for the project? That, if you remember the Main Street, Union Street intersection, it was gonna be more state reimbursement than there was, but we would've had to do it differently.
Right.
So we
Lose more parking, I think.
you know, we did it differently, but we had to do more pay ourselves.
Right.
So, you know, and I guess when they're paying, they get to call the shots.
Yeah.
To a certain degree, I suppose.
Good.
You good?
Yep, that's
Good,
it.
thanks. You know of any new liquor licenses?
I haven't heard of any.
Okay, that's good. No tours, I'm gonna jump over.
Tattoo. That's all the show.
I think we were thinking they were getting ready to apply or something, why did they receive it? I mean, we know they're out there thinking about it.
Yeah. I think we got their liquor
Oh,
license.
They did?
Do you know what they did do?
I don't. I did read about it, but it didn't stick. I know that they were looking for,
Yeah, I don't remember
looking for
seeing.
also CPA
My,
funds.
yeah, my only reason of asking is just to kind of keep an idea in the back of my mind of how many are available. You know, as one gets picked off, I think we have 4 left or 3 left. That's not a big deal, it's just, that was all. So, on items 11, 12, and 13, or certainly 11 and 13, kind of want to, I was hoping to be a little more free-form and bunch together. So why don't we go to number 12, and then we'll talk about 11 and 13, please. And number 12, I just wanted to point out one thing. I know when I sent my email out with the article, that was the Boston Globe article regarding Hoyoke and their Hoyoke's mayor's strategy for the legal marijuana industry. Mayor Karen sent me an email, or I think to all of us, that she says it's in ordinance committee. The only thing I wanted to bring out, was that this legislation, was, well, if I remember correctly, it was a ballot question. But it was, how do you say it? Well thought out from one point of view, in that, unlike Colorado and some other town, you have to opt out as opposed to opting in, which is a great marketing strategy for participation. I'm not so sure people who voted for it, well, people who voted for it didn't care, they just wanted it. But a lot of people, I'm sure when they saw that, had no idea about that little detail. So my take on that, though, is if the city chooses to do anything, chooses to do, well, because of that, they have to make a decision to either do something or not do something. My only thought at the moment about this is zoning. You know, where should it be? I don't have ideas. I mean, you know, I think it wouldn't take too long to find out where it's inappropriate. I mean, you know, it's a business, you know. But I think that this is something we should be, when it comes up, we should be a little bit more involved in, you know, with consensus. And I want to be just a little bit more proactive, meaning I'm going to ask, you know, to get some of this information a little more timely, you know, so that we can weigh in without having, you know, we only meet once a month, and I'm fully aware of the open meeting law. I'm fully aware of it, but sometimes you have to be a little proactive in order to adhere to that, to know what's going on. You can't just wait to the meeting. And like you mentioned tonight, the planning board is talking about something, but you know, in all honesty, I'll go home. You know, it's an important meeting, maybe, you know, and at this stage, it's not a big deal with the planning board, so you know, drafting language, we can. But on this one here, I think, you know, just so if we're going to have a voice, I just think we need to be a little more proactive. We don't have to drive the train by any means. It's, you know.
So what are the necessary steps, Jamie? I mean, it's been approved by the state legislature, if you will.
Yeah, it passed in Massachusetts on the November election. In East Hampton, it passed basically 63% in favor to 37% opposed. And since then, the only thing that I've heard has been that the state legislature adjusted some of the deadlines for when the first licenses can be issued, or when, like, there was a timeline in there for like when things had to happen, or people could just like do it on their own, and those timelines got pushed back 6 months.
Like June or something.
Yeah.
But let's fast forward. Let's make believe that everybody could do it. What happens if someone walked into the building inspector for a permit to open a dispensary?
Well, right now we don't have zoning for it. So right now it's not.
Meaning it's not allowed by zone.
Right now our table of uses say these are the list of allowed uses and everything else is not allowed. So if someone were to walk in with and wanted to open up a business, I don't know what would happen.
That sounds like a legal problem because it's approved by the state. The city would have to opt out.
What the law did allow was for existing medical marijuana dispensaries to have recreational sales after a certain date if they want to.
But there are no existing here.
Well, we do. There's one that's permitted and it's in construction.
Okay, right.
So.
Pleasant Street.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So, one could make the argument, and we've done this before, that where a use is similar to an existing allowed use but isn't explicitly allowed, that we look towards the zoning and say, well, this is a similar use. So it might be that if there's no new language drafted, that they would have to follow the more or less what's required for medical marijuana. Same zones, same requirements for everything.
Yeah.
But it is currently in the city council ordinance subcommittee is dealing with this, and will hopefully come up with some language and designate where the zone, where they want to see it. We'll be working with the planning board, and you know, I don't know if there'll be a larger public process, or if it'll just be what goes on in subcommittee and then brought to the city council. But
Okay.
there is enough time to deal with this proactively and have this all laid out so that if someone does decide they want to open up a retail dispensary, that there would be a clear ordinance for them to follow and a clear location. You know, and I guess my thought of why I wanted the EDIC to discuss this was from an economic development perspective and a community perspective, whether or not what sort of support this body had for going forward with ordinances, and so I don't know if that's how you see it as well, but.
Well, no, yeah, sort of. I just also see it, I guess, from a self-centered point of view. If the EDIC is going to be relevant, you know, just speak now for hold your peace. You know, just, you know, weigh in on it. I don't have, I myself don't, I'm ambivalent on the whole idea, but it's here, and I think the EDIC should, you know, we should give ourselves an opportunity. If we say we pass on it, you know. But I just know, I know that the way things are working with the ordinance committee right now too, I just think that we need to be a little bit more proactive, because their hands are full with various issues. And you know, and that's how I look at it. So I'll reach out to the city council to stay in touch. I'm going to ask them to be included on their email, some emails sometimes, or maybe the planning department, I don't know, just so that we know about it. You know, anybody can go to any meeting as a interested party, and anybody can go on the website on Monday morning and see what's for meetings. But still, it's nice to be a little bit, you know, if I send an email out, heads up. That's all. Yeah. And, that's all on that. Does the planning department have any view other than economic development that you just mentioned?
I mean, I don't know that we as the planning department have a view. I have a view personally, but, you know, and I'm happy to share that, but it's, I can't say that it's anything more than my personal view. Not the planning department and not the cities, but, you know, I think that there's a lot of taxes to be generated off recreational sales, and, you know, both off sales tax and personal property tax. If there's all of that equipment that's used for growing and the space is expensive and add to the city's budget. There have been, if you look at the medical marijuana, there was city host there are agreements between the dispensaries and the cities that some cities have used very effectively to generate like payments on payments in lieu, not payments in lieu of taxes, but additional payments. You know, there are it's here statewide, so it's one of those things where I think the early adopters are going to see the most benefit from it. You know, and if it's not in East Hampton, it's going to be in Northampton, it's going to be in Holyoke, it's going to be in Springfield, and you know, if East Hampton wants to benefit from those revenues.
Yeah, I guess my thought on it, Jamie, is forget for a moment what the business is, but if no different than if it's a liquor store or a bicycle shop or a hobby shop or a comic book store, if the zoning allows wherever it might go, and the permitting process is secured, I'm not sure why we wouldn't support that business going. So if the zoning says it can go between here and here, and the permitting puts them through X number of hoops to get to the end result, and a potential business does all of that, you know, my personal position is, who are we to say we shouldn't support that? It's like any other new business.
Totally.
Forget for a moment what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whether you agree with the concept or not, it's a new business that wants to locate, that's met all the criteria to open that business in your city. Why would you say no?
Yeah.
From an economic development perspective, why would you say no?
Sure.
Years ago, we all went through the same thing with adult stores. Oh my God, we can't have them here, we can't do this. And there were legal battles that said, well, wait a minute, it's a business, they met it, you can't really restrict where they're going to go. I still think that a business is a business, and if they meet your criteria, whatever criteria zoning or planning or whoever puts in place, open them with, have a ribbon cutting.
So I guess, to respond to that, I would say that as it was legislated, or as it was passed, I think that the minimum required is 20% of, the minimum number of stores is 20% of the liquor licenses for the community. So the licensing board or the ordinance committee or the city council has a determination to make how many licenses they want to make available. So the EDIC could have a stake in that. There's going to be zones. If the zoning requirements say, they can't be located any closer to, a mile to a school, or 2 miles to a school, or half a mile to an existing facility, or whatever the regulations are. Depending on how that maps out, it could be that we can only have one.
Right.
And I don't have a stance as to whether or not more is better. But I just think that that's something that, the EDIC has a stance on, that's something that can, a letter or support or a recommendation to those bodies start making the decision that, we've looked at this and really think we need to protect our schools, or we've looked at this and we want to maximize all the revenues we can get, and we can have 15, let's do it.
There's still some, and I thought I heard it coming out of Northampton maybe, but there were some efforts to even just jumping on the liquor license restrictions, for example, of just saying why. Why are there any restrictions?
Yeah.
Let the market bear what it will.
Yeah.
You're not going to have 27 liquor stores because some of them aren't going to survive from an economic perspective.
Right.
The market will guide how many liquor stores you're going to have. So I think someday someone's going to look back and say, can you believe in 2017 they limited how many? We don't limit how many restaurants we could have, how many breweries, how many comic book stores. We don't limit those. The market will decide how many you're going to have. Someday I'd like to see no restrictions, because it will control, it will be self-controlling, it will be the same with marijuana, it will be self-controlling. I might almost argue, and Dave and I have had this conversation offline, and we had a great presentation a few months ago from a member of an organization called LEAP, which is Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. They were supporting the passing of the question. That if you look back in history and you look at life during Prohibition and the crime and all of those issues that came out of that, and you look at that today, it's eerily similar. And if you ask any high school student today, what's easier to buy, marijuana or alcohol, they will tell you marijuana, because I don't need ID, all I need is cash. So I would argue opening up a marijuana retail outlet next to a school might actually benefit the students, because they won't be able to buy it, because they'll have to be ID'd and all of that, where today they can buy it on every street corner, unfortunately. So
also a lot of opinions now being based on emotion. And I think we have to take that out of the equation. Like you said, let the market bear.
I just think that if you tax it, you regulate it, you control it, like we do everything else so well in this state and country, I think you'll actually improve the dark alley, gun-toting, drug sales. I think, just like Prohibition.
Well, and, you know, I serve on the Healthy Youth Coalition, and of course I'm with the schools, and I think people are just very hopeful and concerned that informed and knowledgeable decisions are made as all these decisions are made, and that's the hope of healthy communities, to be able to provide information. If people ask for it, or if they come across stuff, they can provide it to the city, so that decisions are made fully knowing these are good, solid decisions based on some good information, so.
And I don't want to give the impression that I'm advocating drug use. What I'm suggesting is that by taking it out of the shadows and putting it in on the storefront, you actually control it better than we do today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we'll stay on track on top of it, so, you know, we can weigh in where we think that we're appropriate. I don't think we'll be driving the train, but I think we're part of it, and we can,
We're better knowing, too, we know more than anything we did
you know,
a year ago.
you know, our companies, you know, we're not gonna rent any establishment like that. That's a business decision, though. It's not a moral decision. It's because of, you know, we look for symmetries and stuff, and I just don't wanna go down that road. You know, we have rented to a very big part of that industry, the hydroponics. And so it's not like we're above anything. I mean, it's just, okay. Now,
So I just add that the ordinance subcommittee meets the second and fourth
Oh, thank you.
Wednesdays
Yes.
of each month.
Second and fourth Wednesdays.
Second and fourth Wednesdays, or that's what their schedule is. If they don't have anything on their agenda, I guess they don't meet. So if you look at the beginning of the week, you can see what's on their agenda.
well, I'm glad, Jamie, that when you were speaking, you know, about your personal, that, you know, you mentioned the economic development, and that's one thing I've been thinking about from a different point of view, you know, with the ordinance committee. I mean, I don't wanna get into it, but, you know, we have an issue in town, you know, that's being talked about, the sanctuary cities.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
And, I'll just, you know, I'll open up a little bit. I'm dismayed that it came, but it's here, it's like Pandora's box once you open it. And I think city council needs to, they have to address it because it's in front of them. But, and I don't wanna get into divisiveness and one thing over the other, but we also need to take care of, brass tacks too, I think. You know, and I think, you know, maybe the EDIC can push city council, but like, you know, well, like the ECA coordinator is gonna be looking for funding, you know, this year or next year. Well, where's that gonna come from? We need some more revenue, we need some more growth, you know, and I think, you know, all that stuff is easier said than done, but if we don't keep beating that drum softly, it gets pushed to the side a little bit. You know, we can go round and round about the sanctuary city, but I'll just say one thing that's bothered me about it a little bit. Whether we adopt it or not isn't as important to me, but we're wrestling, this community is wrestling with it, but other communities, like Southampton or West Hampton, you know, we're a small city, but we have to deal with everything, and they only get to deal with what they want to deal with. They're bedroom communities, and so we have to work harder at addressing our needs. You know, they don't, you know, their communities are more heterogeneous, have higher incomes, and, you know, and I think we're doing responsible things by dealing with some of these issues, but I think we just can't lose sight of growth, because that's how you pay your bills, you know, and it's just, so you know, along with that, you know, I think you know, it wasn't on my agenda, but I think we need to talk about maybe, asking the mayor how she feels about putting a future use committee for the schools, you know, sooner than later. You know, I've heard some comments recently, I found it to be interesting, that some people feel that the Maple Street School should not go residential. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but I've heard some comments that it should be parking. So, all I'm saying is the discussion needs to start at some point, you know, and one of the persons said that that's economic development. The city needs to invest in the businesses, and they were adamant. It's like, whoa. And, you know, so that's kind of, when I wrote down 2017 goals, you know, I'm speaking right now, but I kind of want to throw it out to how everyone else feels. What do you know, how you guys feel about what we're going to do for the next few months? You know,
Well, I sent you some information earlier,
Yeah.
and I know not on the agenda either, but I really would, when you talk about economic development, you know, I look at the over 55 housing issue as almost like school choice, and unfortunately, more and more of our residents are choosing to move to other communities when they're looking to downsize. You know, we put the moratorium in because we got cold feet after the East Street project was built. 300 units, 325 units went online quickly. Everyone got nervous. We put a moratorium in place. I'm not going to argue the pros and cons of a moratorium. What I will argue is we put it in place and forget about it. And it's still there today. So a developer who might want to put in an over 55 development today can't do it without a lifting of the moratorium.
I think there's no moratorium, I think it was just repealed.
I think after the moratorium, it got outzoned.
The zoning doesn't, it's just removed from the zoning.
My understanding was that when they brought in affordable housing, they eliminated over 55.
So what's the logic in that?
Wasn't here for that.
We just, no, I'm not pointing the fingers, I'm just saying, how smart of us when we're about to get the biggest boom of over 55 and of baby boomers looking potentially for downsizing, and we go the opposite way and close the door on them. I don't get it.
Yeah, and the oldest one's hit this year, 2017.
Did that happen at midnight some night when we were?
No,
paying
there
attention?
was some, it was.
You were still young.
No,
I was still
You were
young.
still young.
And the other one's gonna be, you know, the other door that unfortunately folks are leaving East Hampton on is assisted living. You know, you look at facilities like Linda Manor that just built their assisted living facility. Not that we necessarily have the land for it, maybe we do, maybe we don't, but more and more middle generation adults are forced to take their older generation parents out of East Hampton, whether it's Lathrop, Loomis, Lathrop, I guess, is in East Hampton, but the last time I checked, there were hardly any units available at any in our market. And more are being built further and further away, whether it's Connecticut or Central Mass or Eastern Mass, but over 55 is the next step, and the step after that is assisted living, and we're not prepared to embrace or accept those folks which come to you with being in a pretty good economic position. Whether it's they themselves and over 55 tend to be economically well off, able to spend money in your restaurants and stores and what have you. And then when you're forced to move that next generation to the next step, assisted living, if they leave the community, their dollars leave with them.
Yep.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone. Their family members that come to visit them or take them to a community where they are, when they unfortunately go to their reward, the estate tax goes with the state they're living in. So all of those things impact the economy when we basically have said, when you hit a certain age in East Hampton and you want to look for housing that fits your lifestyle, you're going to have to look outside of East Hampton.
Well,
and I think that's an issue we have
Actually,
to
Lathrop
address.
is expanding.
Yeah, but their model is on the higher end.
It's very much a
Well,
higher
as
end.
you were saying, though.
But on the flip side though, not only what you just said, if you're an East Hampton native and you wanna, and you're coming up with this decision, likewise, people could be coming here, you know, you could be a 30-year-old person, all of a sudden your parents are from Maryland, they might need to live with you.
Yeah. Right.
It's just, you know, it can draw people in as well as keep people.
I just think of, under your head, sorry Dave, just real quick, under your heading of goals, I'd like to look at whatever steps it takes to put that zoning back in place for over 55.
I thought part of that was, what you're talking about was addressed with the revisions made to ordinance, zoning ordinance about accessory apartments. I mean, we do have
Mhm.
more opportunities there for people to have their aging parents live in their homes, even in a separate
Yeah.
building on the same property.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, I'm more concerned about that generation between 55 and 65 that's still very capable of living on their own. I know of at least 4 families now that have moved out of East Hampton to over 55 housing. I understand that on Main Street, there's an informal waiting list. Informal is the word I can stress for the units on East Street. That you'd be hard pressed to try to buy a unit in there if it becomes available. So where are you going to go if you want to be in an over 55 community? Where are you going to go? You're going to leave East Hampton today. You know, could somebody do another development like that in East Hampton today? I think the answer is no.
Well, there's nothing stopping a developer to do a 55-plus development. What the zoning ordinance, my understanding of the ordinance at the time allowed was for density bonuses in agreement for affordable housing restrictions and it was a combination of affordable housing and 55-plus. And the 55-plus got thrown out, but the affordable housing piece stayed. And I believe that any large residential development that has 15% affordable housing can get access to those density bonuses. So there's really, and if a developer wants to say, we're gonna age restrict these units and we're gonna affordable housing restrict these units and we're gonna, make these ones for caregiver in-law apartments, that's up to the developer. We just, right now, the zoning doesn't,
Well,
is not geared to specifically encourage 55-plus.
I should say 65, please. Or 75.
But, I mean, I'm gonna, defer to, at the appropriate time to the committee, but I wanna be a little bit more aggressive and like, I'd like to see the EDIC send a proposal to the planning department and city council saying, we would like to see, over 55 reinstituted, and maybe, we have to have it thought out, in some proposals. And if they say, that's nice, and shoot it down, well, we tried, I'm not gonna barrel ahead by myself. I want, it's a committee. But I think we can be a little bit more aggressive. The ordinance committee can always say, that's nice, Dave, see you later, so what? But then, or they might say, hey, great idea, we'll meet on it, we're busy in 2 months, and whatever.
But it ties nicely with your first, proposal for goal in 217 about the future use of the buildings too. So, even asking for that reinstitution of 55, it could collaborate with the forming of a future use committee and looking at buildings and how it would help if they revisited and tried to reinstitute the 55 measures.
I think there's some other models out there that I know a lot of people in my generation, especially a lot of my single friends who are very concerned about housing, who know that sooner or later they're going to have to sell their single family house. And the 55 and over housing on East Street it's either a little too large for them, not appealing. They want to see a more communal sense, which Lathrop in a way has, but that's way too expensive for most of the people I know. It's not affordable. So it has to be affordable and it has to be really community based. More, that's what people are looking for.
I think
in my age
affordability
range.
in the long run is best served by more tools in the toolbox.
Totally.
I think, I have nothing against affordable housing, the way it's been constructed recently, but the problem with that model though is it's running out of funding. And that's how things go, there's cycles, but I just think in the long run, affordability, viability, diversity is the more tools in the toolbox, the better off.
And all I'm suggesting, if I go up to the view from 30,000 feet for a moment, because I don't know the right terminology on over 55 or affordable or assisted living, what have you, but if we're forward looking here and we're looking at the train that's coming at us, which is a huge aging population, I think we need to be prepared to be attractive to that population,
Totally.
because
Oh, yeah.
it's an attractive group to have living in your city.
Yeah.
And however we do it, however the zoning, however we do it, I think we need to be prepared, otherwise our own residents are going to be leaving East
Well,
Hampton.
it's the first year of mandatory withdrawals from IRAs and 401Ks, 70.5.
Right.
And it's gonna be, there's, I'm not saying everybody's gonna run and buy it, but there's gonna be people doing things.
Oh, yeah, they're gonna look to reinvest differently, and we only have a window of 19 to 22 years. And
Yes,
serving
and then
those
they're gonna be-
60 and 70-year-old people,
Yeah.
so we don't have like, decades to work on.
Well, and the
these
next
issues.
generation down isn't gonna have the finances to support a Lathrop or even East Street, and East Street frankly, because you have to drive, it's not walkable to anything.
Right.
It's
Well,
not,
the St. Michael's model in Northampton is
exactly,
a wonderful.
it is a wonderful model,
wonderful
and
model.
try the waiting list on that, I've had some friends that are on
Well,
the waiting list for that.
okay then, well, I'll throw it on the,
Oh, it's like-
agenda, and I'll do some
Yeah.
research.
And so, excuse me, Dave, that's right, when we talked at the last school building committee
Mhm.
meeting, this can't be a driver of, we're trying to sell to the community the value of the school project. It won't be a driving force, because a driving force is gonna be educational benefits. But sort of a subsidiary to that is, what's the potential economic benefit to the city on the back door?
Yep.
And with all due respect to the folks that might support a parking lot at Maple Street School, that's gonna generate Zippo to the city. And frankly, in my humble opinion, it won't help parking, because people are gonna say it's too far away from where I'm going. If I can't park where I can see the front door,
Right.
we have a parking problem. So some sort of housing at Maple Street School is going to potentially not only drive dollars for the purchase of the property, but drive subsequent tax dollars and bring people living in walking distance to your downtown, which is gonna be much more economically beneficial to the businesses than parking
Mhm.
spaces.
Oh, totally.
Because now I can live at Maple Street School and I can walk to anything I want on Cottage Street.
Right.
So maybe they won't have to purchase a car, and then the new renovation there could maybe
Yeah.
offer the city 4 or 5 spaces to the public.
All kinds of possibilities.
Yes.
Yeah, you never know, you be hopeful.
No.
Put a marijuana dispensary right in there.
Anybody
Yes,
else?
totally.
I wanna move on,
Perfect.
anybody else,
Green room.
everything on that?
No, we're good.
You have something you wanna mention?
Not on that.
Go ahead.
Next meeting you have is February 14th.
Yeah?
The third Tuesday
Oh,
is February
I
21st.
told you, I was way messed up on that.
So what is it?
It'd be the 21st.
February
Yeah,
21st.
thank
Oh,
you.
good, because that's Valentine's Day.
Carol,
Yeah.
did you
Yeah,
wanna,
we've done that.
mention something else about sanctuary?
No, I was just wondering if there was gonna be any discussion here, because it's not really economic development, if the board is supposed to, should we take a stance on it or not, I don't know.
I guess it's.
Can of worms, sort
I
of.
guess it's economic development if you buy into the fact that someone might eventually impact federal funding. I just don't know if that's a scare tactic or not.
Yeah.
Federal
Well, I think
funding
it's
has to
too-
be directly related to, they can't, they're not gonna take away money for playgrounds at schools or
No.
anything else.
It's too far removed from what we do.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And it's too emotional.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, well, that's what I.
Yeah, I'd say let's not,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll keep it in mind, keep it
Yeah.
in the back burner if it has economic effect, but it doesn't
doesn't right.
appear to.
I just don't want it to overshadow economic discussion.
I did, I
Well,
I
let's
have
not talk
something.
about that.
Yeah?
Possibly, an idea to discuss for,
Uh-huh.
2017 would be, having East Hampton, install around town, do something for, electric vehicle charging stations.
Okay.
We have none, and that's.
Does the energy committee, whatever it was called, still exist, or?
See, I knew you were gonna say, I
Well,
we were
no,
talking
I
about
don't-
this before, because they don't really, it's very
No, I
irregular,
don't,
yeah.
I think it's very appropriate. I was just
Yeah.
curious, because we piggyback with them or work with them, but. if
That would
they-
be nice,
I
yeah.
haven't heard anything from the energy committee
Yeah.
in ages.
But I do see it as
I'm
an
gonna be
economic
meeting with the mayor, I'm gonna
development.
bring this up, you know.
Good.
The
Yeah.
energy
Little trip on
committee
the
does
extension
meet, does
comes across
report
the
How
back.
about a
Right.
solar array
Right.
over the parking lot on
So,
Union Street?
Well,
That would be-
yeah, that would be good.
I
think
know
that's such
electronic-
great
it's
use
not-
of
it's
parking.
electric charging.
Yeah.
So electronic.
I have to go to Northampton to charge my car.
We
Right,
put the high
and,
school,
you know,
charge
the-
at the high school.
You do?
I think this high school has one in the back row, there's a church. Yeah,
High
the
school?
building people were good, yeah, I think there's one or two spots in the back of the lot, isn't there? where
It's
they
not
plug in?
listed on any
No, it isn't
EV
listed,
charging
no.
maps.
Oh, I
that
thought
I've
Paul
seen.
Peely plugged his car in, let me ask him.
Ah,
I'm
yeah,
asking,
cool.
I'll let you know next time.
Okay, good.
No, Jean-Pierre has electric car and, you know, and you have one downtown.
He's got a hybrid.
Oh, hybrid.
He's got a
yeah.
hybrid.
Yeah, I thought Paul plugged
But I do
his
know
in
some people in
somewhere.
town that have 100% electric cars. so-
I'm one of them.
Well, I know 3 now.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good one.
We did, are we putting the future use elementary, middle school stuff, discussion of 2017, or is that?
Yeah, I think we should, I don't know when, you know, I mean, it might still be a little bit premature because we're still working on the concept of the school project. But I think certainly maybe in a few months, we should just be pushing someone, you know, I'm assuming that committee will be a little bit promoted by or pushed forward by the superintendent and the mayor. Because the school property is under the school jurisdiction and the mayor oversees everything. You know,
I think, Dave, when the time comes, if I recall the protocol, I think when we get a new elementary school and the school vacates the old buildings, the superintendent declares them surplus, and they automatically revert back to the city.
Right.
So the school would be out of any input necessarily, and say, it's all yours, East Hampton, do what you want with it.
Yeah.
Similar to what happened in Carson Street. But if the stars and planets line up, we open a new elementary school in the fall of 2020.
Right.
That's not that far away.
I guess I just think that's something that's worth carrying on the agenda.
Yeah.
So that way
Yeah.
we can, when things do inevitably get announced, we'll have it on the agenda, we can talk about it, and we won't forget about it.
mhm.
Similar to just carrying liquor licenses or plastic bags, right?
Yeah.
There's other things that we're just carrying on the agenda, so
Right,
there may be nothing to report, and we just skip on by it.
by all means.
Well, I think if nothing more though, on Dave's proactive theme, if we just start throwing out ideas, so let's take a look at center. Okay, let's go around the table, what are some ideas and see what sticks and see if we come to a consensus and we just sort of tuck that away. So when the time comes, we say, here's the consensus of EDIC for center or Pepin or Maple. Because that may take us some time to even come to a consensus about what might work or not work. Easy to say, housing, parking, office, residential, what have you, but there's a lot of devil in the details.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything under new business or for the heck of it? My reading of the committee is that we have 2 openings.
Yes.
That's correct. Clay Cole did not re-up, and there was 1 opening anyway. So, I'm not sure, I'm gonna, when I see Karen, I'm just gonna mention to her that Clay finished. And then, you know, and we beat the bushes a little bit.
Yep.
For, you know, at least one of the 2.
I will talk to Dave Fagnan again.
Yeah, he hit us a while back, he said he was getting ready, he had some things he had to deal with, and then,
Okay. I think he'd be a good addition.
yeah, and then, okay, that'd be good. So, unless there's anything else, motion to adjourn,
I would make a motion to adjourn.
thanks a bunch.
Thank you all.